Assalamu alaikum dear researchers and welcome to lecture 6 on moderation analysis in Smart PLS. This is our lecture series on PLS SCM with Smart PLS 4. In this lecture we are going to discuss what is moderation, what is difference between moderation if we have a metric moderator or a categorical moderator, how we can do moderation in PLS and how we can also do a three-way moderation when we are running a model in PLS. So how do we define moderation or what is a moderation analysis? Moderation describes a situation in which the relationship between two constructs depend upon the value of a third variable, which is referred to as a moderator variable. So if you see, we assume that the moderator M is not affecting either X or either Y. That's a different question. What we are proposing is that M is actually affecting the relationship or strength of relationship between IV and DV, X and Y. So this is the concept of a moderator. A moderator changes the strength or even the direction of a relationship between two constructs in the model. So for moderation analysis, there are two important things. One is to find if the moderator is significantly related, number one. Number two, we can also draw a graph to see how much change a moderator is bringing in the strength or the direction of the relationship. Moderation can be a continuous variable, a metric variable which we assume has a continuous level of number, or it can be a categorical variable which has different categories, for example, gender, for example, level of education, designation, etc. If there is a continuous variable, the simple equation if we are doing regression is that is y is equals to p1 x plus p2 m plus p3 x into m, which x is the independent variable and m is the moderator. When we're talking about moderation in PLS or in SEM, we can have two types of moderation. First is if we have a metric variable and we are just talking about a moderation between an IV and a DV, then we can have an interaction effect that as we have already discussed in the previous slide. For categorical variable, one option is do the multi-group analysis, for which we have a permutation invariance test first to check whether the data for the two groups is invariant, and second is the multi-group analysis, which means that which tells us if either the model that we are testing or the relationships that we are testing are their beta values significantly related across different categories of data that we have with us. To understand how to do moderation analysis in Smart PLS4, let's continue working on our previous data. So we have already seen this is a simple mediation model. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to make a copy of this model, make a duplicate, moderation, emotional support. Why I'm making a duplicate is to retain the original model and to add a new model. So this is option that you should frequently use so that your previous models are also retained and you can also make a change in the analysis model. For simplicity, I'm removing this mediation for now because we are only interested in moderation right now. Later on, I'll add moderation and mediation together as well and add my variable which I want to add as moderator, that is emotional support. So these are 8 questions for emotional support. They are added as indicators. Let me zoom out a bit. And for this emotional support, I am closing the indicators right now. So where to add a moderator? As we already seen in the figure, a moderator is not related to any other variable. We can test a moderator as an IV. It will not affect our analysis, but basically we are trying to calculate the moderation effect. So I have just added is a moderator. What I have done is I have used this connect option, drag from the moderator variable and drop in the middle of the path and it will be added as a moderator. You can add it as an IV, but it will be automatically added as an IV, so we need not do it. I can move this emotional support over here and this is added as a moderator. This option is basically an upgrade in Smart PLS4. Previously in Smart PLS3, what we had to do is to have to create an interaction term using some button augmentation effect over here. And it's not that difficult, but this is a better option because adding a moderator is much easier now. So as you know, we have added a new variable. So what we should need to do is we need to check for the measurement model of this new variable. So I'm going to run this PLS path analysis. The AV is 0.459. So I should see the factor loading, open the report for factor loadings or outer loadings for emotional support. So I think emotional support 4 and 5, they need to go. So I'm going to go through the process and then we are going to repeat. So what I did was to remove two indicators, and now we can see that for the construct the AV is 0.503, the composite reliability 0.858 greater than zero point 0.7, Cronbach alpha 0.807. So our moderator is done here. Okay, now next step is to do the bootstrapping, because we are interested in see is the analysis or are the results of moderation significant. So same settings, we have already discussed these settings. Let's start calculation. Whenever this moderator, you will notice that it will take a little bit more time because it has to do the analysis, right? Because in moderation it has to go multiple times, multiply the indicators. Then open the report, go to path coefficient, and there you will see the moderation term. This multiply basically represent the moderation between the independent variable and between the moderator variable. The moderation of emotional support between negative affect and psychological distress is significant, and between emotional fear of terrorism and psychological distress is not significant. Since the beta value is negative, which means the negative effect has a negative moderation. It basically, we can explain it like this, that as negative effect increases, the relationship between emotional support and psychological distress it weakens. How we can show it using the graph? Because we have seen the results, we can just report these results, moderation is significant, but the important thing is to visualize that. So the option is in PLS SEM algorithm. We can run it again. We already ran it previously, but now we can see it again. And then open the report. And here you can see we have simple slope analysis on left hand side. So in simple slope analysis, you will find two graphs. Now, as we have previously seen that the moderation in the case of negative effect and psychological distress was significant, we can also see from the graph. Let me explain you the graph. This graph has given us three lines. The first one is at a -1 standard deviation value of emotional support. The second one, the blue, is at mean value of emotional support, and the third is at +1 standard deviation. So, how we can see that when emotional support is less than mean at -1 standard deviation, which means a lower value of emotional support, here we can see that the slope is much stronger. Since it's a negative moderation, so as the value of emotional support is increasing, the effect of negative effect on psychological distress is decreasing, which means that if a person is negative or it have negative emotion, the effect on the psychological distress can be reduced if the emotional support is greater. Since the emotional support as a moderator was not significant between fear of terrorism, we can also see that basically these lines are quite parallel to each other and they are even not intersecting. The rules for a model which has a moderator in it are same as a direct effect or a mediation model. However, according to Hayes 2018, for F square effect size, because the effect size in a moderator relationship are very small typically, so the benchmarks are different from a direct effect path. If in a direct effect path, the small is 0.02, medium is 0.15, and large is greater than 0.35, whereas in a moderator effect, the small is greater than 0.005, medium is greater than 0.01, and large is greater than 0.025. So what are effect size in the model we have just analyzed? Let's go to quality criteria, F square values, and here we can see that for our moderation path, the significant effect size is 0.090. So if we compare this 0.090 is actually a large effect size. Another important thing to note in the path coefficient result is to see that emotional support is also given as a predictor of psychological distress, that is our DV, and it is a significant predictor. So even though we have not drawn a path from emotional support, which is our moderator in this case, towards the dependent variable or endogenous variable, uh, the results will give us the significant or insignificance of the direct effect as well, and it is negatively related. Now let me show you some more combinations of how we can have moderator in our models. For instance, I go to my previous mediation, simple mediation model, and I draw a line between fear of terrorism and negative effect. Now this path depicts that negative effect is a mediator, and I draw another moderation between fear of terrorism and negative effect. So now we have one variable as three moderators, that is between IVDV, between IV and mediator, and between mediator and DV. So we can test if a theory supports us, we can test different combination of moderators. So let's open the report and see the results. First of all, path coefficient will tell us which of the moderation is significant. But as you can see that the next moderation we have hypothesized is also not significant. Another combination is that I can add another moderator in the model. For instance, I add positive effect as a model, as a moderator, positive effect. Now remember to go through all that process of measurement model in which we have already discussed in our lecture number 3. Connect as a moderator. Now this is just something that I am doing for all of these paths. Calculate, bootstrapping, start. Now as I'm adding more moderators, it will take more time. Open the report and the path coefficient. Now once again, none of the moderator is significant, only the one we found earlier is still significant. A very interesting combination is that we can have a three-way interaction effect as well. Now let me first delete all these moderation lines. And what I'm going to do is that with this moderation, I'm going to moderate the moderating line, which will be a three-way interaction effect. So what is happening is, because we have already discussed that moderation is the interaction effect, it is positive effect multiplied by emotional support multiplied by negative effect. Positive effect multiplied by emotional support multiplied by fear of terrorism, and the interaction effect on psychological distress. So when I press this bootstrapping, now let us see the results. To path coefficients. Now you can see here that we have emotional support multiplied by negative effect. One of the interaction effect, another interaction effect, and then we have positive effect, emotional support, also an interaction of moderator multiplied by moderator, then moderator multiplied by moderator multiplied by IV, and then moderator multiplied by IV, and then we have moderator multiplied by moderator multiplied by another IV, fear of terrorism, and moderator multiplied by IV. So what are the results? Very interestingly, our previous result has changed the moderation, and we have found a new moderation effect, that is the moderator multiplied by moderator. Now that is what is we haven't proposed it, but we see that positive effect and emotional support, the interaction is significantly related to psychological distress. So what is happening basically here is that although our three-way moderation is not significant, emotional support as a predictor is moderated by positive effect when we are looking at the effect on psychological distress. Although PLS SEM support three-way interaction, you will see that it will not show you the slope. So we may have to use another software if we want to make a slope, or what we can do is that since we found that emotional support and positive effect has a significant prediction effect, we can remove emotional support as a moderator, and we can make positive effect as a moderator here, do a simple slope analysis with PLS SEM, open the report, go to simple slope analysis, and you will find this positive effect emotional support slope. So at negative standard one standard deviation, the slope is actually a bit positive, but at mean it has gone negative, and at plus one standard deviation it is still negative with a higher slope. So we have seen an example how the direction of relationship between IV and DV can also be changed by a moderator. So sometimes when we are making different combinations, we can have some significant result, and with the help of our theoretical support, our literature, we can justify those results, and we can have very interesting findings. So moderations can give us very interesting findings, but one thing to remember about moderation is that it's sometimes very hard to get significant result with the moderators. That is all about this video. In the next video, we are going to discuss the multi-group analysis, and then we will proceed to our conditional process modeling.